We are live. Hello and welcome to Fermenting Opinions. I'm your host, David Papiden.
I'm your co-host, James McVeigh.
And we are Fermenting Opinions, the podcast and Google Hangout, in search of a more palatable political ferment. This is March 19, 2019. And we're here to talk about the mass killing that happened last week in New Zealand on part of gunmen who I actually don't know his name. And I'm going to make a point about why I don't know his name. Individual killed 50 people. Yeah,
it's forgettable.
Yeah, it's forgettable, and that's a good thing. Killed 50 people last week in 2 mosques, I believe. And we're here to talk about the obvious, attention that's on this, the fallout, what caused it, what motivated it, and what's happening in New Zealand culturally and legislatively in the wake of that, and how we just instinctively are going to compare that to what happens in the wake of mass killings using firearms here in the U.S. And tonight, joining us, we have Brandon, Haley, and Mike. Thank you guys for being here. They're mostly muted.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Good deal. So, kind of just want to get right into it. So, this guy. I don't know what weapons he used. I don't know his name. I don't know. And this is deliberate. And I want to start by making a point of that is like when we talk about who he is, what he believed and what he felt and the guns he used and his tactics and the video he recorded of himself driving to the mosques where he did these killings. Like it all has the effect of sensationalizing what he does. And it all tends to, it makes he didn't die in this one. Oftentimes the shooters die. This time they didn't. They took him alive. It tends to sort of like immortalize and make martyrs of the people who are engaged in these things, and it tends to inspire others.
Yeah, I mean it makes the shooter famous.
Yes,
rather than making the fact that we have people in the world who are inspired by their extreme hate for a group of people to go out and murder people. If you do that, you become famous. And that seems to, I'm with David. I don't want to make this guy famous. I'm going to make, the fact that Islamophobia is very, very real. People are murdered because other people have such extreme Islamophobic views to be what's famous.
Sure. And I'll go ahead and weigh in here. I have read his manifesto. I've seen this horrific video, and I really don't want to get into details of that either because I agree with both of you. I think it's absolutely antithetical to give him any kind of platform. There's really not much to talk about this guy. He's any trope you see on the internet in alt-right circles. I think it is important to occasionally talk about what he actually espoused, and we can do that as we go along. However, yeah, let's refrain from using his name in anything that
I didn't even realize it. I don't know his name either.
And I'm completely fine with that too, because again, this is there was. I guess it was a New Zealand media outlet, whatever. You posted a picture of like his arraignment or what have you, and the picture in the courtroom. He's doing the little okay alt-right, frog people thing.
I can talk about that all day if we were to go into it.
And I don't want to.
I can't believe he did that.
Out.
Oh yeah, of course he did. He's a living meme. That's kind of the problem.
He's a living white supremacist.
Yes. No, I understand, but the point.
So let's call it. Hey, hold on. Sorry, my husband. Hey, all right, stop it.
I'm not sure if that's me.
I feel scolding. No, I think she was talking to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's trying to annoy me. I'm sorry.
For once, she's not criticizing you.
Hey, anyway, Haley, please continue. I'm sorry.
I lost my train of thought because of my annoying husband.
You were saying that he's a white supremacist.
Yeah, he is a white supremacist.
He's a white supremacist. So, we can keep talking about this specific incident and, the ideological views that this guy had and everything. But, I never want to detract away from the fact that first and foremost, he's a white supremacist.
I would agree with you there. I think it is important to parse out some of what he was saying and like where he's at. But yes, I completely agree.
Yeah. Hey, ladies.
She's getting her headphones ready.
She's getting ready.
Oh yeah, she's untangling them.
As far as that goes, he is definitely a white supremacist. And again, I can't remember the man's name either. I barely remember.
I think this is fantastic.
I remember barely remember his initials. And yeah, no, I agree. I could give a shit less about that. I mean,
one of the things.
You mind if I weigh in?
Go ahead, Mike.
You mean Brandon?
Oh, I'm sorry, Brandon. I'm really sorry, dude. I'm sorry. I didn't.
Don't worry about it.
So I figured,
it's a free country. You can call me what you want. No, so generally, when it comes to these kinds of things, I mean, a lot of these people who are, committing these kinds of acts generally are more on the younger side, and it's because they're because of what you see is how they act. Like for example, the symbol the guy made in the courtroom. IMA,
what's IMA? What's IMA?
I don't think it's
IMA.
I don't think
the symbol. I thought you said the symbol of IMA.
Oh, the symbol of the symbols that he made in the courtroom.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What he made was the symbol of Pepe, but generally, you can see where these are kind of children of the internet. These are people who kind of are influenced by all kinds of mediums, all kinds of things out there, that are readily available. And so it's very difficult to shelter people from those kinds of things out there simply because, doing so would make us not too dissimilar from China or the DPRK or et cetera.
Yes. And Brandon, I agree with you there. There's been a lot of talk about that. I agree with the idea of not sharing this information, but at the same time, I don't think there's anything wrong with looking into it for yourself. On that specific note, though, he really is, the little white supremacist symbol or whatever you want to call it, the OK symbol. I mean, this was a joke that's been running since the 90s about, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, it's kind of a try to make somebody look at you making that symbol so that initially you could hit them in their genitals. I don't really know how else to say that, but it's evolved into a meme culture, and it's still something that happens on the internet as a joke. That's nothing, but it was co-opted as a white supremacy symbol because it was directed that way. It was directed that way initially as a joke again, like, haha, we can make people on the internet believe this, but it became something that's actually serious. And you have this shooter who's reflecting these things to try to make a point, I guess. I'm not sure what his point would be aside from he's a white nationalist, but
supremacist.
Yeah, well, all of these things actually, again, if you read his manifesto, he's an ethno-nationalist, which is it falls under the same umbrella.
That's ethno-nationalist is like sort of like the umbrella term for which I guess a white nationalist.
I can explain I can explain the difference. Please, if you want me to. Explain. The difference would be they both fall under the same moniker essentially, but ethno-nationalists and white nationalists believe that you should separate races by country. Essentially, is that Europeans have laid claim to Australia, America, Western Europe, and that they should dominate those realms, and that other nationalities and religions and whatnot should stick to where they're from. In that view, they don't necessarily believe that one race is better than the other, or that one race should be wiped out versus another race should be wiped out. They believe in fighting what they call the invaders. Right. They believe in, I guess, Muslims migrating to their country are invaders and they have to be expelled. And if they won't leave, you have to kill them.
Right. They look at these people as the other.
Like, yes.
There's something about their heritage or national identity or whatever.
It's a form of xenophobia.
Yeah, exactly. They just don't belong. To consider someone because they have a different religion, their skin is different, or they look different, that they're They're the other.
And it's not
that they're an invasive pest that needs to be eliminated.
Exactly. It's not necessarily this idea that they have to be wiped off the face of the earth, but more of they have to.
But they don't belong here.
Exactly. Yeah. No. Exactly. I mean, yes.
I mean, that's still.
It's still horrific. Don't get me wrong.
I mean, that isn't count. I mean, you know, we're all people.
I completely agree with you, and it is extremely wrong. I'm just saying it bears distinction, I guess. There's one school of thought that says they should be destroyed. There's another school of thought that says they should be removed. Neither one's correct. Neither one's correct. And it's important to talk about that.
But can I bring it up then? Like, okay, so one says, okay, just kill them when they come to our country versus kill them all. Like, you're a piece of shit either way, right?
Yeah. Oh no.
Like,
but I mean, like, clearly, you don't value their existence. Like, you know. Go on.
Hey, are we making a distinction between the people that hold those beliefs and the people that will act out in them in ways that physically harm others that would also be considered violations of the law, whether it's civil or criminal?
I'm not trying to.
I think that's a good segue point.
But I'm not. I was going to say I'm not trying to make that distinction because again, I'm going off of the shooter's manifesto and what he said in general is that he has no problem with other ethnicities. He doesn't want them in European-owned territories, which I think is hilarious in its own right. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't want to get involved in that either. But like, okay, sure, so European colonialism has granted you these territories, and now you think that they're the invaders. But I don't want to get too deep into
it. Goes off to a lot
but
of weird
I think
trails.
I think you have to at least talk about this and distinguish it. Like, he's not saying wipe out all Muslims. He's saying Muslims don't belong in European colonialism. And
just wipe out all Muslims from your society.
Sure. Yes, kind of. I mean, he's saying that he's doing that as a last
I just
resort.
don't see how that's distinct.
He's saying he's doing it as a last resort because liberalism or whatever is accepting these people. Again, I don't know.
People?
Yeah, these people.
Yeah, come on.
Again, I'm parroting the language that I'm trying to.
I understand. We understand you don't actually adhere.
Yeah, no, I think it's disgusting, and I mean, he's obviously trash. I'm just saying that we should talk about what his message, I guess, was to some degree.
But hang on a second. That's where kind of what I want to get into, though, is to me what's more important is, and I've mentioned this to you privately before, before coming on air, that this guy, he went and murdered 50 people.
Yeah.
Right. And he wrote a manifesto and he did a video of him doing
mobilized social media to do it.
And mobilized, and social media to do it. And of course it's been brought down and what have you. But the point was that you don't write a manifesto if you don't want people to read it. Right.
No, of course.
So by him doing this, you generate even though this unnamed, white nationalist killer dude, we've generated an interest in what he had to say in the nuance of his position. And I'm not saying there isn't nuance to his position. There's not, some specifics that he's not exactly like this other thing.
I mean, I don't know.
My question is, why should I give a flying fuck?
Yeah, why?
Yeah, no,
he's a white supremacist who murdered a bunch of people because he hates them.
Yeah.
Oh, and you guys aren't wrong. You aren't wrong at all. This is simply for.
And here's another thought. If by talking about all the little distinctions that he's getting into, it's kind of like taking away from the idea that white supremacy generally is bad. So any of these like different derivatives of it, like, oh, it's ethno this or that. And
exactly.
Why even give it credence? I mean, it's all under the umbrella of white supremacy, and that's bad. And then the next question is, are you going to break the law in the name of white supremacy?
Yeah, I mean, trying to call it like, he's trying to work on.
One issue I have with that, and it's that you have to understand what it is in order to fight it. If you don't understand what it is, there's no way you ever will succeed in fighting it.
Exactly. And that's my point too, is that it's important to break it down to understand what the problem is. But you guys are not wrong. Haley, Lace, David, you're not wrong at all. I mean, it's all evil, toxic bullshit.
Yeah.
It's all evil, toxic. But
and I mean, like, I'm totally fine for, trying to understand why this person started hating people so much that he decided to, you know, carefully orchestrate mass murder, totally willing and you know, very open to learning, like, why does he hate certain people so much? But, you know, I do think that, you know, him couching who he is as, like, what did you say, an ethno-nationalist?
He's actually describes himself as an he's a
white supremacist who murdered a bunch of people who hated that because they were different from him at their house of worship because they wanted to express their love and who they believe is their creator. That's what he did.
Right. Those things are all true.
Wait, hang on. Hey, guys, hang on a second.
One at a time, please.
Just one at a time. Hang on. I want to bring Mike up because Mike was trying to say something. Mike, what were you saying?
Yeah. Part of his manifesto was that he mentioned that he was an eco-fascist, is one of the labels that he named. And I mean, the one thing about this that makes it so strange is, I mean, yes, there's obviously multiple labels that he could be given. All of them are garbage. I mean, white supremacy, garbage. White nationalism, garbage. Name it. Like everything that this guy kind of identifies as far as we can tell, is garbage because he's a garbage human being. Look what he did.
Yeah.
But this is something different. This is really different. And I'm kind of going off the hip here, but this almost seems like people used to call in the 30s, they used to call fascism ultra nationalism, not just nationalism, because, you know, Gandhi was nationalist, but it was ultra nationalism with the white supremacy aspect tied into it. This is something even more because he's tying in so many different branches into this one, almost like a ultra alt-right troll trying to use all these different parts. And he's an ultra, not just an alt-right wing troll like cracking jokes, like just takes it all to the extreme, obviously became radicalized.
I'd be, if I may, I'd be happy to talk about that. And on the eco-fascism end, what he was describing was he essentially was saying that he is an ecologist of sorts, or somebody who believes in preserving the natural state of things. And he believes that nature and race are involved in that natural state, and that he wants to preserve natural realms for, I guess, ethnicities. It's really difficult to describe.
It seems like a.
What he's saying is that the mixing of cultures is destroying the environment as well.
Yes, that's exactly what he was saying, and which is so ridiculous. It's beyond. I mean,
don't get me wrong. I mean, he was ridiculous. The moment you mention ethno anything,
yeah,
the moment that you mass murder 50 people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in all fairness, he dropped these manifestos or whatever before he murdered anybody. But the moment you say anything about ethno anything, you're an idiot. I'll say that, right?
There's one really important aspect though that I got out of reading that sorry paper known as his manifesto, was especially based on the finger pointing that he did and all the contradictions. I mean, talking about, you know, certain popular figures, PewDiePie, YouTube star named, and Candace Owens. I mean,
Turning Point USA.
He's a white supremacist that said she gave him inspiration. I mean, really, this guy and he does say this in the manifesto. All he wanted to do was increase the already big divide between politics that we see everywhere, and it's not just America.
Specifically, as far as America, though, he does address this and says that he wants to create a civil war in America based on the Second Amendment and Second Amendment rights, specifically because he believes that white people are in favor of, I guess, a pro-Second Amendment situation, and that minorities are not, and that's his divide, and that's what he wants to do. Is he will create a race war in America based on the Second Amendment.
I mean, so Charles Manson. I mean,
he does, but he does have a point to some degree. I mean,
why are you giving him any kind of credit, man?
Well, no.
Yeah,
on this particular issue, I see where he's coming from, though.
What are you talking about?
I'm saying that mainly white male America are the people that rally around pro-Second Amendment, issues. That they're the ones that are coming pry it from our fingers.
Even a blind squirrel finds a nut.
But I mean, if you read it, he specifically addresses this, and he does so in a very eloquent way that he takes up probably 1,100, 1,200 words describing it. And he says that this is my goal specifically for America, to do these things. I want
The question-
to
I have an
separate.
idea. Can I say something real
Go
quick?
ahead, Liz.
Sure.
I have two thoughts, I guess. And look, I agree that you do need to educate yourself about all these odd things that he's saying, but I almost analogize it to kind of like gang stuff. Like if I really wanted to know about like who the Crips are and who the Bloods are or whoever all these like crazy gangs are, I can go like do that research. But it's not like you don't see the like CNN, all the news outlets like, you know, talking about like these distinctions. It's more of like something that the people investigating and crimes that are committed in the name of whatever or would know. And it just seems like it shouldn't be like the manifesto, like, yeah, it's out there, but I feel like it shouldn't, out of respect, frankly, to the victims, if you give what he did a voice, it's like basically all of their deaths were in vain. And so I feel like, yeah, the information, obviously it's knowledge is power. It should be out there, but I just feel like it shouldn't be put on blast. It should be for those who truly try to seek it out.
I mean, and what I want to know is like,
right, so what classifies as actually giving credence to his ideas? And what isn't? That's a very important question. And let's also remember that you cannot stop the sensationalism of these acts anymore because it started with Columbine and it's going to keep going. That's never going to
be the internet.
But we can choose.
Yeah, but you know,
it sells papers, it sells articles, it sells all kinds of things. That's the reason that this will continue to be sensationalized.
But here's the thing about it though, is that you know, sort of going off of what Lay said is that, you know, it's, you know, these people's deaths were in vain. It's worse than their deaths being in vain. Their deaths were a catalyst for his popularity and the popularity of his thoughts and ideas. And he said some things about a race war and Second Amendment and blah, 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 and increasing divides in America.
It's making him famous.
He's made prophetic statements, and now we're putting it out into the ether for people to know we're only doing that because he murdered 50 people.
And what I'd rather talk about is how he got to where he was, you know, like what, you know, like, and I mean, like that, like, sure, I'm all about, like, I'll hear, you know, I'd love to hear about the manifesto, but I don't want to debate about what's the difference between an ethno-nationalist and a white nationalist. This dude was a white supremacist. How did he become that? You know, that's what I want to know.
Okay, that's fair, Haley, and I completely agree with you.
Let's segue to that. Let's segue to.
Can I touch on that?
Sure.
Now, this is not first of all, this is not a defense of what this guy did. I'm just trying to rationalize.
There are no white nationalists on this hangout.
I'm literally Mike, just keep going. Whatever.
Because this is what I've seen from. I mean, I don't know about people that have been radicalized. I don't know anybody that's been radicalized. It's the one guy, but what I've seen people talk about on social media is they feel that, and it's again, this is the alt-right. These garbage people talking about it. They think that everybody now is that the pendulum has swung the other way, whereas there used to be open and accepted racism towards Black people and brown people, Hispanic people, etc. Now it's swung the other way, whereas now it's accepted and tolerated to be racist towards white people. And these people, these extremists that get radicalized say, you know, look at all these people talking about like this about my race. Well, screw them. And then you get these people that go off the wall like this nut job. And again, it's more theory than anything else, but that's really what I've seen people talk about. Just people, and literally, a lot of people complain about it. Like, how come somebody can say?
So you're saying that it's tolerance?
Well, no, it's not. It's a tolerance in society. Like right now, you could say on social media, you know, white people are X, white people are garbage, and most people will be like, yeah, whatever. But if you say any other race, pretty much is garbage, well, right away, everybody comes down with the hammer, and rightfully so. But it's wrong no matter what race it is, and people see more tolerance when it's done towards whites. So these extremists come along and get into their alt-right, you know.
That makes sense to me.
I mean, the pendulum swings, but
hang on, wait,
the pendulum.
Wait. I'm gonna pass to Haley, or I'm sorry, I'm gonna pass to Lace because I want to hear what Lace had to say on that one because she said it made sense to her. Before I finish breathing in and just
not all of it, but the last part did about you see more acts of white supremacy related groups or subcategories, the spectrum of white supremacy, because right now whites feel those would identify as white supremacy spectrum people feel threatened. And Mike had just made the point that, you know, you see anytime you say something about any group, it's bad. But if you say something bad about white people, it's just tolerated with, you know, it's just tolerable. People are like, shut up, you're white. Like, you're not, why do you care? And, you know, you've got it good.
Well, but so I think
that's what Mike made it. I mean, it's the last.
No, Mike's right, though. Mike's right, and Lisa's right, too. Yes, that's an excellent point to make. I mean, yes, you're going to see white people say, like, what the hell, man? I feel targeted.
So I've been thinking about this Yoda quote for a long time about, like, you know, fear leads to hate, hate leads to anger, anger leads to suffering bit. And there has been couched for a long time to every particular group of people, like fear, like there's an invasion at the border, fear, they're taking our jobs. I have no idea what's going on in New Zealand, but I assume that there has been like this fear, and you know, I keep on, and what does it lead to? Hate and then suffering, and it's a cycle or whatever. And so pendulums swing and the cycle continues. The wheel wheels as the wheel will, but
the cycle does continue, and I mean, God.
But you know,
go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
But yeah, I mean, I think that whenever you start really planting these seeds of fear in people, which makes you wonder what is going to be the response of the Muslim community to this kind of attack.
Agreed.
You know, what are they going to start fearing? You know, like what are they then going to start avoiding?
Stop. Hang on, we got to stop. Hang on. Wait.
What?
The Muslim community's response? Are we serious? I mean, like, I don't want to sound terrible here, but the Muslim community's response has been to
community.
Are you going to about to spread fear?
Like this was a white,
as far as
Muslim extremists.
Mike, do you want this or do you want me to do it?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Spread the fear of the others. Go on.
It's not. I don't want to do fear of the others. I'm just saying, like, that's a.
I don't know.
That's
really
I'm saying that like, 50 people were murdered at a church.
Evidence. There's documented evidence of every day. Hundreds of people
in New Zealand,
not in New Zealand, in
the
world. Oh, well, in New Zealand.
I was saying, like, if you're a Muslim member of the new, like, what could be their response? They were just attacked and murdered.
There's only a few.
Are they going to start fearing people?
There
Probably.
are only a few million people in New Zealand. Period. Whether they're registered or not as residents.
So we're even talking about this.
Explain to me where this is going, please.
Well, I will. The point is that last year there were 37 murders in New Zealand. We're in March, and we have nearly double that based on one event.
Well, my point is, to quote someone else, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And whenever you start spreading the fear of, you know, people who are different from you,
there's a nuance here real quickly, and that is that, you know, Islam as a religion is a pre-enlightenment religion, as in it's a religion that hasn't had an enlightenment yet. Mm-hmm. It's the last one out there who still hasn't, technically. Now it depends on what you define as enlightenment. Are we talking about, you know, the influx of logical thought? Well, yes, that has started to happen. You know, are you talking about
a religion that is responsible
deeper philosophical, you know, rambles? Well, I mean, that's happening too, but the practical reality is that it's essentially a fight between the old guard and the new guard in the religion. And this happened in Catholicism, and this has happened in many other religions. This isn't terribly new. And so there is a reason why, you know, that religion is kind of picked on to some degree.
Yes, and Brandon's absolutely right about that, is that it's not a matter of, you know, one religion versus another. It's just like a natural progression of, this is a young religion that is responsible for hundreds of deaths per day based on religious, you know, beliefs. That doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that the religion of Islam is bad.
There is a whataboutism here, which is that every religion has.
And I want to avoid the whataboutism.
The practical reality is that younger religions have this problem earlier on, and then they get out of it as they age.
I want to make this clear. This is not a whataboutism argument. This is a situation.
What's another younger religion that has?
There is not.
Scientology.
There is no younger religion other than Islam, and it's.
I mean,
well, if we look at Scientology, I mean,
are you kidding?
That's a religion that's had more crimes than everyone.
Are we being serious?
I mean, it's bonkers how many crimes Scientology has.
I'm sorry. Again,
wait. Okay, all right. I don't know where we are. I feel like we sailed into the upside down somewhere along this thing. This isn't a debate on. To do what? Go ahead, Lace.
Can we skirt into what should be the roles of society and policing? I've read a lot or I've seen a lot of articles where you see politicians coming forward and saying that they're getting policed and their speech is being curtailed. To what extent should folks that are engaging in these types of ideologies be allowed to do so, or perhaps be restricted from doing so? And does it matter if they're breaking the law?
Hang on. Wait, are you suggesting we should censor free speech based on the objectivity?
She was asking. She was just.
I'm putting a question. I feel like the answer is on a spectrum. For instance, the man posted a Facebook, whatever the video was, of him shooting up the mosques. That should certainly be scrubbed, right?
Sure. Yep.
Everyone who watched it live, no one reported it.
I saw that actually.
Yeah.
No one. So whenever we were doing this talk, David brought up, hey, I've noticed that there are some people who are liking that we're doing this show, and he was like, should I turn off comments? And I mean, what I said and James agreed was no. If anything, if we would just report anyone. No, we're not going to turn off comments, but we're not going to be afraid of it, for one thing. But also, as I was thinking about that, but there's so much shit posting out there. What kind of obligation, how much monitoring and stuff, are we going to hold entities like YouTube and Facebook and everything? We report it. We're doing our duty. Say hey, that dude is espousing danger.
The amount of money that we afford these people, I guess people being corporations. Yes, I do expect a better response time. I mean, but
I also think that they just like we do with our group, we also rely on self monitoring and self policing. Every person who was watching that Facebook Live video, none of them reported it.
When you get incentives from the American government equaling, but $10 billion,
people.
I expect
why not just make incentives through the tax code and just say I'll give you X amount of things knocked off your taxes if you just start building self-monitoring systems.
Exactly, Brandon.
Building all these kinds of things, that would actually
Brandon,
build
that's exactly.
But that's not encouraging apathy.
Hang on, wait. Brandon's right, and that's what I'm encouraging, and that's exactly where I'm at. Is that we give you $10 billion a year or whatever? I'm making that number up. I mean, it could be adjustable, but we give you $10 billion a year in tax breaks, money that you save. I expect you to dump that into the everyman that you hire at $20 an hour.
I just don't see an incentive by anyone with power to pass that kind of stuff, though.
I mean,
it's our job as people in a corporatic republic, quote unquote, to at least push them and really actually make real change happen. If you want that to happen,
I don't expect.
Otherwise, don't complain about it.
I don't expect a congressional rule to make this happen. I expect a business to do this on their forefront, on their own. Yeah. I assume Facebook wants to keep being Facebook. Sure. And
they're not going to stop being, but also you just have to keep in mind that there's power in fear.
When you're but on an international scale,
it's a sacrifice of one power, and the other one isn't.
Yeah.
What if everyone's reasonable? Okay.
Yeah, no, and Haley, I think you're right on.
To persuade.
Haley, I think you're exactly right on the head with this. Is the idea of the rest of the world cares about what you do, not just America. The idea of, are you going to be a platform for this hate and this disgusting shit to happen, yes.
Right. I mean,
if you're going to do it, then yeah, I expect you to employ people to stop this from happening as soon as possible.
In terms of ethical responsibility, I think, yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you want to be part of an organization that's an incubator for violent extremism of any variety?
And then let's be clear. I do not blame Facebook for the fact that the manifesto and the video got spread. Yes, it started as a Facebook Live video, but yeah, every other right-wing organization, anybody else copied it, made it, recorded it, and spread it.
I'm sure there are very
you can't blame Facebook for the fact that someone said, "Hey, I'm going to start a live feed in 10 minutes."
Right.
And here we go. I'm going to start murdering people.
Here's the thing, guys. Like we can all be content creators. I can turn these cameras on and I can say or do any kind of awful shit I fucking feel like, right? There's nothing stopping me until some filter or somebody reports it.
Except your co-host.
Well, I feel like I'm stopping you more often than you're stopping me. But that aside,
all right.
Yeah, no. Remember what I said earlier about the supervillain bit?
Yeah. Excuse me. All right. Let's calm it down.
Point being, I had to. I'm sorry. Point being, like, user-generated content could be literally anything until somebody catches it and stops it. It's catch can.
And also, like, if you're gonna start having like built-in monitors and stuff, like it's content-sensitive monitoring as well, which is gonna take like an ethical discussion of what, like, the whole reason, like porn isn't actually defined, like, or it's seen.
We're adults. We're supposed to have that ability to make that discussion occur.
So
and one of the problems with creating that monitoring system is it's going to be AI anyway, which is problematic on its own.
The AI did a pretty.
It's not going to be a human who's going to monitor this.
I don't know if anyone followed how this worked. I did, just out of curiosity, but the AI did a damn good job of cutting those videos out in Facebook. The best way they could beat it was to literally take a phone and record a computer monitor from the side to put the video up.
Right.
I mean, and that was
We're trying to
6 hours after the actual attack happened. I mean, they did a pretty damn good job.
Yeah.
You can't hate on them for it. I mean, they tried their best.
What this brings me back to is, so we can't necessarily stop content, at least initially, from coming out that is of the most pernicious and disgusting variety. What we can do, and I think sort of the message that Haley and Lace at least have been echoing, is that, like, we don't need to give it credence. We don't need to honor its existence by engaging in it, right? And I understand there's a psychology at play of, like, it's the awful thing. I need to watch the train wreck in slow motion, but like it's. I understand, because I've watched many slow motion train wrecks, but like, I think we all reach a point where we can stop and say, look, I've seen enough of these. I don't need to see the next one. I don't need to watch another one.
Treat it like child porn.
Well,
basically, yeah.
Hang
on.
But also,
I don't know if you saw the analogy I've been making. I've made the analogy several times. 2 girls, 1 cup.
Yeah.
Never watched 2 girls, 1 cup.
Guys.
Serious as a heart attack. Never watched it.
Me either.
And why do I need to? It's some awful shit, right?
Yeah,
literally.
Listen, hang on, stop. As far as the video goes, I completely agree with you.
Sure.
I will admit that I've seen the video. I did so.
Okay.
Based on some
and
other.
It's fine. I
think it's important.
I know people are going to watch 2 girls, 1 cup.
Can I have a moment? I didn't watch it in that sense. Can I actually describe what happened?
James. Go ahead.
Yeah. There was a news piece out about how someone tried to rush the shooter and stop the shooting from happening.
I saw that.
And there was a bunch of people who said, oh, that's a false flag. None of this happened. This is bullshit. No one ever tried to stop the shooting. At which point I was actually infuriated, and I was like, okay, wait a minute. I trust a lot of the news organizations across the world to have gotten this right. Let me go find this. And I did watch it, and I regret it. And I'm going to tell you that No, please, God, don't.
You watched the
Did it
video?
show?
But I watched.
Did it show both mosques?
No.
No.
It
So
does not.
the guy bum rushing the guy happened at the second mosque.
No,
which
it
is why
did
there were
not.
only
Actually,
7
no,
people
it did
killed.
not. And I can provide you with screenshots of it, and I still have
We're
a copy of
good.
the
I
video,
believe
but
you.
let's not do that.
It
Point is,
happened at the second mosque.
no, it did not. It happened first. But I mean, I can do what I did to this person and take screenshots.
I mean, they
and
have
show
the
you how-
guy.
It's not the same.
I don't know what you're trying to.
It's not the same
get at.
story. I'm sorry, it's not the same story. Point is, when the shooting happens, it's on a GoPro camera on top of this man's, I guess, combat helmet or whatever. He's shooting, doing his thing. Someone comes running off from his left side that's not on camera. He turns, faces the man as he's right in his face, and shoots him somewhere in the crotch or gut region, and hits him with one bullet before the man actually tackles him. Knocks the gun out of his hand. The gun goes skittering across the carpet. He goes down, and he's staring at carpet. He gets up, grabs the gun, and then drops about 10 rounds into the poor bastard who actually hit him and stopped him and just destroys him. I mean,
Well, the other guy's still alive and wasn't shot though.
What other guy?
no, you're
guy
talking
who's- the
you're
guy
talking
who-
about the guy who actually had a concealed carry permit or whatever. And
No, but he knocked the guy over one time, and the guy dropped a gun and he picked it up.
no,
And
that
then-
I mean,
And then yeah, that happened. He it was in the parking lot, and he wasn't
No.
shot. He was like,
no.
Can we back
no.
up a second? Can we
Hang
back
on,
up a
wait.
second?
I can show you video of that.
Guys,
you don't want to see
Guys,
it.
can we
but-
back up a second? The minutia of what happened, who did what, who hit.
What is being talked about?
The point is, it wasn't a fucking false flag.
What I'm trying to say is, yes,
that's
I
what
agree.
we're
but
coming back
the
to.
important part is on what I'm talking about is that this is on video. What is actually being discussed in the media involves the first attack in the first mosque, and you can find video of it. I mean, the second attack in the second mosque is not recorded on video at all. He shot.
Is that the one where the most people passed? He killed. I feel like the first mosque was not as many.
no, the first mosque
The
was
first
over like
mosque was-
40 something.
Yeah,
Oh, that was the worst one. Okay.
And then the
Nice.
second one was 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the second
So
mosque,
and yeah, the reason why I remember that is just because it's the one story that I heard being aired, and I stopped and listened to it because it was, I don't know, a little bit more positive. And
I
it was,
understand.
this guy wasn't shot. He had 2 daughters in the mosque with him, and yeah,
No,
he tackled
that's
him,
not-
he also did get a gun from the guy
Mhm.
and
No.
used it to scare the guy off.
none of
or
that's
just
none
get
of
a-
that's none of that's accurate.
That sucks.
If I can interject, obviously the actual attack is not a false flag. No doubt about it. Anybody who has seen the video, just that you cannot come to that conclusion.
Yeah,
It's
no,
just
no,
not
it's real.
possible.
No, we all know
Just
it's
not
real.
possible. That being said, I think some idiots call it a false flag because of comparing. They're trying to add both the video and the manifesto, and they're equaling false flag because of all the contradictions and finger pointing and all the different labels this guy's given himself. He's just trying to blame everybody from, Donald Trump to Candace Owens and everybody else, for this attack. That's where I think some of these idiots got this idea. It's still a wrong idea, but it's not a false flag attack.
Hang on.
The guy, again, as his manifesto said, he's trying to spread division and hate. That's the whole point. That's why he did what he did.
I think Mike, you make a really good point there. And one of the things that I glommed onto initially is, him talking about Donald Trump as a symbol of renewed white identity. And
that's what he
But
did.
he also talks about Spyro the Dragon. As
No, hang on, wait.
an
Let's
inspiration.
talk about what he actually said in the actual
But I
manifesto.
don't want to.
But he said these things.
Well, it's not those single. Here's the thing about what he
Easy
said.
make contradictory
It's hard.
statements.
It's hard to take one detail out and actually make it a
Hang
serious
on.
problem.
No, I think this is
So
important.
far, because he goes so far into, he talks about white identity with Donald Trump, and then says Candace Owens gave him inspiration. I'm like,
Hang
wait,
on.
what?
Hang on, wait. These are 2 important distinctions. 3 actually at this point. The Donald Trump end, he says are you a supporter? He's actually doing a Q&A thing through his manifesto in the middle, and he says, do you think Donald Trump was a great leader or whatever? And he says, as far as white supremacy goes and as a beacon for white supremacy or something like that, he says, yes. As far as a leader or somebody who's a policymaker, dear God, no. But on your now the next point would be the Spyro 3, right, whatever. But he said, the question is, did video games make you do this? And he said, yes, Spyro 3 taught me white nationalism and, you know, something else. Which is obviously this. And then he literally says right below it, no, you idiot. And then he moves on. And as far as what was the last one?
I don't know. These
are. It's pretty easy to differentiate between but talking about.
The most important thing is that he needs to take full responsibility for everything that he did. Let's not deflect it to, oh, this person inspired him or that person inspired him. He takes full responsibility for everything he does.
I think that does kind of ignore
this guy is a walking troll, just like every other walking troll, you know, Chan, Reddit, etc. So expect him to say ridiculous things because that's what trolls do.
I mean, there's no doubt that the guy is an evil white supremacist, white nationalist, eco-nationalist. I mean, those labels still apply, but it's not the labels that are in question. I mean, like every time a tragedy like this happens, there's always the blame game, and it's almost never the guy. It's always
the difference is in this point we have a 74-page manifesto, and you have to try to differentiate between what is a joke and what isn't.
I mean, just to put
this isn't the first person who ever had a manifesto.
Look what happened to Chelsea Clinton. Like Chelsea Clinton got surrounded by radical leftists.
We're gonna get to that here in a little bit. But I think sort of the meta point is I think historically are going to embarrass ourselves by obsessing over, you know, what did he signal allegiance to and what did he say and what did he say that was tongue in cheek? This motherfucker killed 50 people.
Exactly.
That's all we ought to care about as a species. That someone it was
right, and his allegiance doesn't matter. It never has mattered and never will matter. He takes full responsibility for everything he does and gets. I would argue death penalty, but he'll probably get reasonable doubt from insanity or something along those lines.
He wants to be misleading, and so division, all these fucking games that these people play, like we are giving him what he wants by giving credence to it and by paying undue attention to it. I think that's the problem. The same reason why, you know, we're talking about like we don't know this guy's name. We shouldn't know his name. History should remember there was a terrible person that did a terrible thing, and who they were, and what they believed, and what they cared about.
And they did so to try to encourage other people to do it. Like they posted a video, they wrote a manifesto, and all this. They want other people to be interested in them and inspired by what they do because you get famous if you do what they did.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
The important thing to focus on it. Important thing to focus on it is not. The point I was trying to make is the important thing to look at is not who is to blame, like who is he pointing the finger at. It's really the ideologies that this person aspires to, which is clearly white supremacy, clearly eco-nationalism, white nationalism. But bottom line, that's really where the focus needs to lie. But like the only reason I even looked for the manifesto and the video was because I wake up and all the, so many media outlets are.
And you're inundated, right?
Well, it's fine. I'm seeing all these people get blamed.
Watched Two Girls, One Cup. People were talking about it. I was interested, you know?
When I found out what it was, I was like, I'm never watching that.
Exactly. It's like, once I actually knew. But, like, no, I mean, I get it. Like, if it you know? But
well, like, mainly with the manifesto is like, when I started seeing multiple outlets posting, you know, op-eds about how Trump is to blame for this, I was like, wait a minute. What did this guy say about Trump that really pointed that finger? And that's what my point was, is to stay away from that and focus on the ideologies as opposed to the finger pointing, because after reading the manifesto, the individual finger pointing only comes back to him. That's just from what I got out of it. I'm sorry, Lacey, you good?
Yeah, to piggyback on what you're saying, would you, like, I agree with you as a baseline rule 100%. You can never say that, like, someone who's crazy enough to want to go kill a bunch of people could, like, say that anyone else caused them to do it, unless literally that person was standing there and said, hey, you go fucking kill this person. or hey, I'm going to pay you to go kill this person, or some other like big thing like that. Okay. I think that's a baseline rule. At the same time, I think a more nuanced rule that is equally applicable that we have to figure out how to work it in is if there's a risk that's created by your speech and the position that you hold, and someone who, not the first time, not the second time, not the third time, but I think we can all agree that there's been a pattern of like white supremacist extremism, religious extremism. You know, I think that there's just demonstrated patterns of that. And so, you know, there's a risk with people that adhere to some of these principles that it could tap on the crazy part of their brain and kind of push it a little bit. And so I think that there's a risk there we can all acknowledge is present. And so it's just a matter of determining whether or not it's right to say someone's assuming that risk when they continue to speak in a certain way or say certain things. Like, are you pouring gas on the fire? Like, and if so, should we hold you accountable for that?
Can I jump in here, Lace? I want to clarify on that before we go anywhere. Are you equating that to the First Amendment standard of screaming fire in a crowded theater?
No.
Are you saying that?
I mean, no, it's like the wind that blows the single flame.
I don't know.
You know, like the flame is there.
I'm not
equating something help it spread.
I'm not equating it to literally. I'm gonna say James. I'm not equating it to that principle. Although that principle is familiar, and I'd like to look up and see what it says. But I will say no. I was thinking of like in my state that's how we think of negligence. And so I know we have a weird state, so our laws are a lot different. But there's like, is there a risk, and you know, is there a duty, and do you assume the risk? And well, there's two different things, but it's a duty risk analysis. But it's like silly for my state. But my point is that if you know if there's a risk, and you put yourself in a place that you could perhaps incur a duty, given the risk, you could be found, you know, liable. Again, I'm not a tort lawyer, but
that's okay. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you. I want to hear what Haley had to say. Haley had something there too.
And then we should move on.
I mean, I was gonna. So I'm familiar with what she's talking about because I do some litigation in Louisiana, and it's kind of this. It's actually kind of similar to Texas, which is common law, but that's gonna get sidetracked. Yeah.
No. Okay. Yeah, that was my main concern, though. Is it sounds like a comparison to the essentially the situation of screaming fire.
I mean, is there some negligence there? Like, okay, yeah, we all understand this person did it. They're the one responsible.
It's another.
Is anyone negligent in it? So.
Yeah, it's the same way of looking. I'm just thinking, you know, legally, is it criminal or is it negligent?
I think it's a good analysis in general to look at it and say, hey, who screamed fire in the crowded theater? If that's a situation that
it's not who it doesn't even have to be who screamed fire in the crowded theater. Who was aware that there was a leaky faucet? Who also was aware that their store had linoleum tile throughout it? Who was also aware that the sink was located in an area close to a doorway frequently traversed by pedestrian patrons at the store?
Haley is a
and do you have documents about this leaky patch in your refinery or whatever?
Yeah, no, Haley.
How negligent were you?
Enough. I feel you, Haley. I see where you're at, and
that's exactly right, Haley. Thank you. I was thinking fire in a fucking what?
Yeah, that's
I don't get it. No, but Haley, that's everything you just said.
First Amendment. You have to go back to First Amendment. I mean, it's a First Amendment analysis. You have to. It is a First Amendment opinion. No matter how disgusting, no matter how shitty your First Amendment opinion is, in America, you still have to look at it as a First Amendment analysis.
Doesn't mean that your First Amendment, like the right for you to say this First Amendment speech can't be negligent.
Yes.
Well, I would argue that the negligence is on both individuals and corporations.
Yes,
that would be my argument.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's a whole other argument. But
guys, I want to move this on because we could probably just continue down this for a long time. But let's move it on. So this guy killed 50 people, and within 2 days, New Zealand has to some extent, or I've not read the minutia of the law, so I'm sure some pedant will come at me. But like, has banned semi-automatic weapons or rifles,
something along those lines. I forget the prime minister's name. Her name is Janika something. Or
that
other.
sounds right.
But yes, she has pledged that they'll ban semi-automatic rifles.
Right, and she seems to have this of their legislative body.
I highly doubt that's going to stop shit. But that's a whole other thing, and I don't want to get into it.
So let's talk about. But let's talk about that because there is a you can't see that and not make a comparison.
In a country without
stop. I understand the difference. I do. But you're going to make the comparison, right?
You're going to have to.
Hey, look, mass shooting, 50 people dead. New Zealand is going to pass a law. They're going to do a thing to try and stop it from happening.
They're going to pattern what they did with Australia.
And in the United States, what do we do? We have a big fucking fight about the
Hang on. That's not a fair comparison.
Did New England even try thoughts and prayers? Like, come on, they didn't even.
Yeah. I saw that same meme too, Haley. That's hilarious.
Yeah. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it was hilarious. But the point is,
I don't have any thoughts.
That you have a country that their last year they had 37 murders.
Yes.
Now they have 50 in
plus.
We're not even a quarter of the way through their year. Yeah, so let's ban semi-automatic weapons and all that stuff.
Does New Zealand have a Fifth Amendment or an equivalent? Second Amendment, sorry. Fifth Amendment, sorry.
Actually, as far as I understand,
that's what I'm going to plead at some point.
But they do have a much stricter licensing situation than what we have here in America. And this guy's still qualified, and he's still got his weapons and still thing,
but they didn't have any regulations on like the amount you can own and like
he only had 2 semi-automatic rifles actually.
Gotcha.
But
like ammo is what I was actually thinking about.
But that would be my argument.
Switzerland,
hang on, wait, what was Brandon saying?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But the issue would be saying not the weapon itself. The problem is, how you do licensing that needs to be restructured in a lot of countries, ours included. Now, granted, when you look at Switzerland, I heard that name pop in there of that country. The problem being is that everybody in that country pretty much has military grade training, so responsible gun ownership.
But they also limit ammo.
It's kind of a given.
Yeah, but they require military grade training.
No. It's like it's the same thing with Sweden. Sweden requires everyone to go to the military. Matisse didn't go to the military. Most of the people I know didn't.
They just leave the country and not do that. Yeah.
No, they just go to college. Like
in another
go to college.
They go to college in another country, so they don't have to do it, right?
No, I mean the majority of the Swedes. That's why I also said the majority of the Swedes I know, which are.
But I'm asking, like, the way they avoid.
I only know one person who did the military, and then the one Norwegian dude. Norwegians are crazy.
I'm asking a question though. Like, they avoid doing so by going to another country for college, right?
No, they can also go to. They could go to their free college education in Sweden and not do it. Like, there's a
that's
lot
what I
of
was
ways.
trying to. I apologize. That's why.
And the thing is, really, the dude it's apparently just like played PlayStation for 2 years and got to ride tanks. Like, it's the Swedish fucking army. Like, really?
Wait.
Same with Switzerland.
They might need to.
Wait, hang on. Who was the guy who played video games for? Wait, what were you talking about?
We're way off into the weeds here.
Yeah.
Are we talking about the Sweden mass shooting?
I don't.
But like government, like everyone's required to have military training. It's like, well, I mean, yeah, like technically you get, but it's this. The Switzerland, I think, probably has like a higher percentage than average, but they don't have any more people. They don't even have a freestanding army.
Yeah, I mean, they're a different world position.
There's obvious,
for example, but
there's obvious things that don't translate neither legally, constitutionally, or culturally between Switzerland,
Sweden, whatever. Yeah,
Sweden. I'm sorry,
or New Zealand or Australia,
New Zealand, and the United States. Right. So let's just get that out right away. But in New Zealand, they're proposing or working on a ban.
Yeah, and it sounds like,
considering that if a ban of this caliber was in effect prior to this guy's attempts at purchasing, would that have been a deterrent? Would there have been, otherwise, if a person was really motivated, obviously there's other ways to kill people, right?
Well, and
a bunch of people.
It sounds like you know, in general.
But I mean, the obvious thing though is like they are doing something immediately that will be deterrent. There's a non-zero amount of people that would be deterred from purchasing a weapon with a ban.
But when you have how many millions of people that live in their country and there were 37 murders, what are you deterring?
But I mean, that's sort of the question. Right?
I mean, there are more than 37. You
amount.
understand that there are more than 37 murders in Murray County, Tennessee alone per year.
I live in New Orleans.
Yeah,
there's like a murder a week, but like
no, there's a murder a day
per year.
Hey, man, that's true. But
what are we talking about?
Well,
like,
just
right. That's right. You just went through. I don't want to bring it up. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Sorry, Haley.
It's fine. It is fine.
No, it's important though. It's important to talk about. Like, what are we?
I'm sorry, Haley.
No, it's really fine.
There's too many people talking about
I'm sorry, Haley. Yeah, I want to pitch back to you.
Let's just bring it back though. Like, yeah, there is an incident and New Zealand is doing something about it. You know, regardless, like we get into this fight about, you know, and people are just like, oh, you don't even know the correct gun terminology, you're a moron, and like won't even listen to like just kind of like anyone's opinions on it, and like we have a whole mashed up fight. But they are doing something about it. And a lot of other countries they do stuff about it, and they have harsher regulations, and you know they limit one's ability to amass the means to execute this kind of action.
Okay, but my question kind of revolves back around that again, and I hate to go back to this, but we do, like as David said, we have different structures of constitutional amendments and rights that are given to people. I mean. Yes, I understand the concept of trying to, you know, regulate your way through this. And I don't think it's a bad idea. I mean, sure, I get the idea. I don't think they apply from New Zealand with a couple million people as your population and 37 murders in a year for the whole damn country.
I mean, I just think that it's nice to see another country experience something and, you know, then doing something about it to, you know, even like maybe it does, you know, but at least they're trying. You know,
I don't think it's nice to see anyone's country experience.
I don't think that's what she meant.
No, it's nice to see them trying
action as a result that will do something to stem.
She's a woman,
but they don't have an issue with this. This is the entire. I mean,
they don't want an issue.
That's my point.
They don't want an issue with it. Wait, guys.
Where's Mike at? Hang on, I need Mike for this. Yeah, I know Mike has read this too. One of the points addressed in this manifesto was specifically about how this means nothing, and he chose New Zealand for the exact purpose that it doesn't mean shit because they don't actually have gun violence problems or anything else, and he wants to show that this can happen anywhere. We can do this wherever we want, and it doesn't matter.
Not just that it could happen anywhere, but he specifically said that he wanted to use the Second Amendment and gun control to spark a civil war and
race-based civil war.
Race-based civil war, but race or not. Most people on both sides, including people that would prefer to even ban guns, would agree. Now, this is the rational people, at least, that if you were to up and say we ban all semi-automatic rifles in the entire country of the United States, well, first of all, it's over 100 million guns. 1, 2, never going to happen. 3, if it's tried to, if enforcement is attempted, and I mean really attempted, where cops say we think you have a rifle, we're coming in. Yeah, it's going to get ugly real fast here. But what you were saying before really hit it, where it's kind of hard to compare the New Zealand with a few million people, 37 murders a year, to the United States with 320 plus million, and thousands of murders a year. I mean, really, if you want to look at it, there's graphs on the FBI's website of statistics. I mean, rifles, and that's all rifles, not just semi-automatic, but just rifles, are a fraction of all gun homicides. All gun homicides, and a smaller fraction of all homicides.
Honestly, I just thought of something. When I used to, there are people that we would call UCC filers. There are people that will actually these are the folks that like believe that
Sovereign
they're
citizens.
sovereign citizens, and I feel like
I know
that's
what you mean.
Stop. Let her finish.
Sorry, I get excited about this. I remember these fuckers.
no, yeah. I've encountered several of them in my practice early on, and I feel like if you try to take guns away from people, you're going to basically be getting people like that to, instead of getting mad about like the court system or financial issues, you're going to see them getting mad about taking their guns. And then you're right, you're going to have like citizen militias. And frankly, that's like, I'm sorry, but that's just, that is wrong and crazy.
Can I just say something really quick before I let somebody else have the floor? Just really quickly, you're not going to have that problem. Honestly, most law-abiding citizens are going to take their guns and bury them, and then give you whatever else they have, and lie to you, and just say, "Here you go."
Off the boat.
And that's going to be it. And they're not. Yeah, I mean, they're going to tell you they buried their guns. They're just going to bury their semi-automatic rifles and everything else. They're going to bury them in the ground and say, "Here you go." Execute.
We're also not going to ask our police officers to go in and take property from Americans. That's going to risk them like being shot. Like I would never ask that, but like, I'm going to ask that like people aren't able to buy this anymore.
There's a compromise. There's a compromise.
Hang on, guys. But the issue is and again, I know Mike's getting ready to jump in here too, is that you have over 1 billion semi-automatic firearms in America alone. I mean,
and like I said, you know, like there could be a buyback program, but just like, why are we still circulating it on the market?
I'm just saying that they're going to continue to circulate. No one's going to give a shit about your regulation.
If we can back,
you're not going to have a problem there.
If we can just
That's
back,
not the point.
I don't think.
What's the point? Well, how do you stop?
I'm trying to explain the point. The point is not, oh look, this thing happened in New Zealand and now they're banning the guns. So you know, if they can do it, we can do it here in the U.S. Who do we lose? We just lost them. We just lost Lace.
Yeah, Lace had to go off in 5. She messaged her, said she.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see her here.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's not the point. It's not there. We're trying to like one-to-one import what New Zealand's doing in the wake of a mass shooting. It's the fact that New Zealand seems to have the political will to take an action in response to a mass shooting, and we don't. That is where that begins and ends.
Okay.
I understand there are logistical differences that are significant. I understand there's political differences. I understand that there are constitutional differences in terms of what our rights are, in terms of bearing arms and stuff like that, which I support. I'm not going to get them.
I'll join you. I'll join you in that idea. I'll completely agree. I think that New Zealand's response has been really proactive.
Yes.
And I like what they've done. I mean, for their country, everything, I don't want to fault them for it. I actually love the idea that they've rallied around this and it's become a serious thing. It does not translate to America, and it's a terrible idea.
It's not a direct translation. It doesn't work.
It's not going to at all carry here.
I think it.
But we learn from other cultures.
But we don't. That does not transfer to America, and that's kind of my point.
I mean, democracy did.
No, and here's the issue: is that
democracy
having I know.
Okay.
Anyway, having read the manifesto, that was the idea. This is what your shooter wants, to transfer that idea to America. He specifically said in the manifesto, New Zealand's going to knee-jerk react.
I mean, and what did y'all immediately do? Like, start talking about like fear that everyone's going to take guns away. No one even said that. It was just like, the reason
none of us
why
did
I brought
that.
up Switzerland,
none of us did
I was
that.
thinking about limiting ammo because
we
can't even talk about.
Sorry, I'm sorry. The ammo
that is what I said, and what I'm telling you is what I said, and I'm saying that you had a visceral reaction by saying gonna take their guns away, and now you're yelling a lot. So yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to yell a lot. I apologize, and I don't want to look that way. What I'm trying to tell you is that this was the idea: is that he knew New Zealand was going to react that way, and he said, "I don't give a shit. I'm not from New Zealand, and I don't care, and I'm also going to be in New Zealand's prisons for the next 27 years until I'm released."
Was he Australian?
He's Australian.
Okay.
And he said, I'll be released in 27 years as long as they can hold him, no matter what.
And he was just visiting New Zealand?
Yeah, for fun. And he'll be out in 27 years.
Horrible.
He was like, by the way, I'm going to go right back to killing people. Let me out of my New Zealand prison in 27 years, which is what they're system of government is designed to do. Anyway,
Yeah.
not even touching that. His specific purpose he talked about was to incite this language into American gun debate, to create a civil war based on racial lines, because in his view, as an Australian, is that only white people care about Second Amendment values and that no one else does. And it will create a divide. Well, I mean, I don't care if it's a lie or not.
Mike, I agree with you.
I'm not going to get involved in it, and I don't want to be there yet. I'm just saying this was what he said, was that this will help create a racial divide to create a racial civil war in America. That's his intent.
That's what he hoped. That's what he hoped for. But this goes into this guy's delusion of reality. The guy's clearly delusional, among with laundry list. But the fact of the matter is obviously history changes. But what most people don't know is that the NRA was started as an organization to help protect freed blacks' rights to own firearms, because they were not allowed to.
I completely agree. And once
what does that have to do with anything?
Well, no, hear me out. A lot of the black community, and by a lot I mean a lot of the black community, is a big supporter of the Second Amendment, because not only do they remember that, but most new gun regulation affects them heavily.
And I mean, I get that, but like, this guy was an American. This guy doesn't know like what the American experience is.
Yeah,
but, he's being a white supremacist, trying to incite a race war over guns.
It's not, Mike. I'm not trying to invalidate your point, and that is a thing to be investigated. It really is. I don't know where that fits into this conversation specifically.
Because it was in his manifesto. That's all.
Wait, okay.
Wait, hang on. Wait, what?
I've got to come back to. Who fucking cares what he was trying to do, right?
Okay.
Like, I don't want to repeat the things that he was trying to affect by killing 50 people. He killed 50 people. He was a white nationalist. He's a piece of shit, right? The point about the whole gun control legislation as a response, vis-a-vis, America versus New Zealand, like, we understand there are significant differences and divides. The point that people will recognize, and if anything, to just note it and just move on. If we're not going to do anything else, is like New Zealand decided, yes, we can do something about this. Whereas in the U.S., we have endless pedantic, useless arguments that go nowhere and affect no change. And I'm not trying to repeal the Second Amendment. I don't want to take anyone's guns away from them. I'm not trying to espouse any of that shit. I'm a gun owner myself. But I think we can have a conversation if there's a political will for it.
We could always have a conversation.
Is that there's not a political will for it, and we've created an environment where it will continue to happen again and again and again.
The only point I want to bring up here is that Mike, I heard what you said about the NRA. And you're right historically. However,
doesn't have much
in the last 20 or 30 years, when Lane LaPierre became I don't want to get into that. But anyway, when Lane LaPierre took over the NRA, essentially, the NRA is a piece of shit. And if you actually care about your Second Amendment rights and libertarian principles in general, you would abandon the NRA immediately. I mean, I tore my membership up, and I told them to go fuck themselves and from their letter. Most of my family knows too. You should. They don't preserve Second Amendment rights. They're some weird, disgusting.
It's a marketing arm.
No, I mean, yeah, it's really terrible.
You know what? We're probably gonna wrap this up soon. But talking about marketing arms, y'all did recently learn about the Tennessee Star. And I know that we had mentioned that maybe we were, I thought that, I just as a comment, I wish we would have gone on more instead of diving into nuance and meaning of what's in the manifesto, just I don't know, diving into.
Haley, I love what you're bringing up, and as a matter of fact, next week, if we have time, I would love to make that a sole topic of discussion.
That's got to be a Monday thing, guys, because I'm getting ready to move.
Well, one of the things that I thought would be touched on was the spreading of propaganda and ideas, and
yes, I think that's a great idea, and
we did not talk about that, but anyway,
right. But there's other things I wanted to touch on because the things I mentioned in the show notes, so I feel like we need to at least touch on them. We're talking about I'm going to say her name wrong. It's like Ilhan Omar.
Ilhan Omar.
Yeah, Congressional Representative
Ilhan Omar.
And, and she made some what has been argued as like anti-Semitic comments. This is relevant to what happened here in terms of what her comments were that were perceived as like trading on like anti-Semitic tropes of like follow the money kind of thing, like Jews have the money kind of thing, and are controlling things from the shadows, like that ugly trope.
Sure,
was trading in that. She's a Palestinian heritage. I understand. Say again.
She's from Somali.
Okay. Well, I like Palestinian sort of sympathies, maybe.
Border of Palestine, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Order of
Borders, he said. But anyway,
sorry.
Not order.
I was like, what?
No. Yeah, he clipped out. It's fine. That she said made these remarks and was regarded as like this horrible anti-Semite, and look at the left's defending her and blah 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 blah. And then it was Chelsea Clinton came out sort of right before this attack happened, saying, we denounce anti-Semitism, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And supporter of Palestine, yes. Yeah, it's so it's fine. I'm sorry, I was reading comments.
Yeah, no, and essentially the idea is we all love Israel.
Right, yeah, it's the
left, right, doesn't matter. Israel is God. They're God's chosen people, and you can't criticize Israel or you're an anti-Semite.
Right, and there's a distinction that needs to be drawn there as well, is like criticizing, sort of Israeli abuses of Palestinians. It's not the same thing as anti-Semitism.
How dare
I know, and that's a whole other can of worms. I wanted to hit on it.
But let's remember, though, that this is what Israel always does to justify their crimes. This is what they've always done. Say, oh, it's anti-Semitic statement, yada yada yada, and all that stuff. So let's remember who it comes from. It comes from the horse's mouth.
Israel has never done anything wrong ever in their lives.
It's not
existence.
Oh,
yeah, I think he's being facetious.
I'm being facetious.
So, this is not different than me personally criticizing certain things like the religious right does in terms of like they're hating on LGBT plus community, and saying my criticism of that is the equivalent of like anti-Christian bigotry. Right? It's the same fucking game that they're playing.
No, it's not though.
I agree with Haley actually on that.
Okay.
No, it's not the same thing. I mean, there are a lot of nuances to this entire situation. Israel isn't always in the wrong.
Well, but it doesn't seem like, is there, inherent like biases that no one ever wants to realize like, oh, like maybe I've been exposed to a certain idea all my life, and you're like, oh, like I didn't even realize that like that, like I didn't even think about that in that context because I haven't like learned enough or even had been that self-aware. Like it's a growing point for anyone, and like it does kind of suck. You realize you didn't know everything. Like it is kind of painful, And so I do think that whenever it comes to Ilhan Omar and everything, she probably does she probably does need to like take a step back and maybe realize like, yeah, what, like maybe like that I didn't like, and that does suck and everything. But like, let's also remember we have been talking about someone who mass murdered 50 people and did the Pepe meme apparently.
Hang on, wait. Hang on.
He's been espousing that. At the same time, we have people who are saying shit like Tucker Carlson, who says stuff like Islam, are animals and barbarians who want us to
he called like Iraqis.
Hang on,
wait. And they don't use forks or toilet paper, and they're animals.
Can I get a clarification just really quickly? Which time are we talking about 50 people being mass murdered by Israel? Is that yesterday?
No, it wasn't about Israel. What I'm talking about is we had someone in New Zealand mass murder. People who were going to a mosque, Muslims, like
I'm sorry,
Muslims exercising their faith.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I take that back. I apologize.
We have Tucker Carlson calling Islamic people literally animals.
Yeah. Well.
And sure, like I want to have it. I want to have. I just don't know if as a society we're actually ready, because if we're going to just jump on and harp on someone like Rep Omar, but like dismiss shit about Tucker Carlson, shit about what Trump says about immigrants.
We're far afield.
Yeah, I mean,
he did a Muslim ban.
No, I think we're really far afield, and I think your criticism is correct, and that has a really relevant place to talk about. But damn, I mean, we're talking about Israel, a country that murders people who are Islam.
I thought we were talking about Republican Omar's comments that were anti-Semitic because they were critical of Israel.
Remember, she's a Democrat, actually.
She's a Democrat.
Sure.
But she deserves to make those comments, and I'm agreeing with you. And that's what I'm saying is that, Jesus, Israel kills Palestinians or anybody who's Muslim tens of dozens per day. Like,
Israel is currently undergoing extremist Zionism in their, existence as a country.
And then that's kind of, we can get into
we have a weird.
Again, I think the theme of tonight is, let's walk it back a little bit to what the theme is here. What I was saying before is, like, you can't criticize sort of the ugly actions of a group of people, and the defense, the apologetic defense for it is to accuse you of like bigotry against that demographic.
Yeah, anti-Semitism. I mean, that's what we're talking about.
Anti-Semitism or
you're
whatever
a
happens
Holocaust denier. I mean, you're not a Holocaust denier. The Holocaust fucking happened.
Right? Yeah. I mean, clearly,
that's terrible.
But I can say, at the same time, Israel is doing shit they shouldn't do. Right? That's not an anti-Semitism. I think Mrs. Omar's, some of her comments were, they came across as genuinely tone deaf, and they're read the worst way possible because she has, because she's a Muslim woman, right?
Yeah.
That it's viewed in that context.
And also maybe she needs to do some self-reflection.
Right. And she probably does. And she apologized essentially for the tone deaf.
It does sound like she was actually doing self-reflection. But that doesn't matter to the main.
Well, she's a junior congressman, though. She doesn't have like any context or any understanding of government. She doesn't even really govern.
It didn't give a shit.
So to some degree, there is. But I can give her a little bit of a pass, but it's also like not acceptable to even
criticize Israel.
To even accept that as like a way to criticize. Like, if you're going to criticize Israel, you need to be much more nuanced than that.
Yeah, there's no way to nuance it.
Well, just self-aware. But the point is, like, people harp on that, but like, we're talking about ethno-nationalism with the shooter. No one gives a shit that Tucker Carlson called Islamic people animals. And
that was in 2006. I mean, that was a while.
Exactly. That's what you say instead of.
And I don't mean to argue with you, and I don't mean to make it sound.
Oh, we lost Dave.
No, Anyway, but
what?
I don't mean it to make it sound like that's forgivable, because it's not. Ever.
What?
Ever forgivable. Oh, him calling Muslim people animals. I mean, that's disgusting. However, that was a long, long time ago, and we're digging it up, and we can do this, and we can play this game where we dig stuff up.
It was 10 years ago. I was 21.
The latest recording was 2011, and it has nothing to do with that. The Muslim animal thing happened in 2006. You can parse them down and look them up based on that. But anyway, that, again, doesn't matter. Tucker Carlson's an asshole, right? Am I wrong? I mean, really kind of a racist piece of shit.
Well, he's a caricature of like what's happened to the right. He's also a great story.
He should not have been. At some point, even in 2006, he should not have been that way. But he was. And that's what he wants to do. And that's fine. He's a piece of shit.
Well, he's like the story of kind of how far down the rabbit hole things have gone. He's just part of that.
Because he was not part of that rabbit hole. 4chan and 8chan is your rabbit hole at that point. I mean,
if you don't think that there is a rabbit hole
this man,
that's ridiculous.
Brandon, this man made those comments in 2006.
I mean, we're not. But that's not really what we're trying to talk about here and everything. What other topics did Dave have to cover tonight?
That was it. That's where we were at. And I'm completely fine with taking Tucker Carlson and hoisting him on his own petard where he belongs.
But he wasn't one of the topics.
I'm glad you got that reference, Haley. I love it.
Now, just to be clear, we're still in reference to the Tucker Carlson comments from, what was it, like 10, 12
No,
years
I
ago?
mean,
Yeah, roughly. Yep. About 10, 12 years ago. Sounds about right.
Yeah, on a shock jock radio show.
No, not all of them were. But
I was trying to get them
No,
wrapped up on this. and I was
the
failing
Shock Jock
miserably.
radio show stuff actually happened in 2011 as it winded
Talking about Tucker
down.
Carlson.
But Tucker
Gotcha.
Carlson belongs on his own petard.
Yeah, he said he was hoisted on his own petard.
Yeah, I agree.
As the term goes.
Yeah.
Speaking of Jeanine Pirro, just got kicked off of Fox News, to my understanding, and is being campaigned for her.
What exactly
restoration
did
by
she
Donald Trump.
say?
She said something about sort of like, Muslims,
she said
Muslims adhere to like Sharia law, and that surpasses law.
Man.
Didn't someone say that like Republican Rep Omar? Oh yeah, that.
Hang on. That's what I was going to say is that
her.
this is Representative
One time.
Omar. Hang on. Hey, you guys are all on the same page. It's Representative Omar that she accused of swearing allegiance to Sharia law and abdicating her allegiance that she swore under oath to our Constitution. That's what she did. And she said it on air.
Yeah.
And she's lost her job over it. And
Was she fired?
oh, no, not necessarily.
So she hadn't lost her
She's
job.
just
All I heard was she lost that
Hang on.
Saturday night airing.
She was removed from air schedule, period. Donald Trump has come in and
Technically
said,
not firing, but
yeah, that's a firing. And Donald Trump has come in and said, you're weak, and if you don't put her back, you're all a bunch of cowards.
And that kind of gets into the negligence thing. If there's someone who is on air consistently and borderline to me incessantly saying shit like
I asked the
Muslims are extremist animals.
Can I ask the hang on. Can I ask the question?
How much blame do they have?
Haley, I'm asking you completely hypothetically, the idea of if there's no prosecutorial effect, I guess, or prosecutorial liability for a sitting president for criminal acts, can you really sue a sitting president for, I guess, libel or whatever you want to ascribe to that?
that's a. Whoa.
And I'm just asking,
Stop.
as a musing.
That's an interesting musing. I don't think it's gonna fit well with the topic of tonight and what we're getting into.
Mhm.
It's not that it's not a question worth exploring. I think we're gonna go way off on a tangent, and we've been at this for an hour and a half. But
Yeah,
with
let's wrap it
regards
up.
to Jeanine Pirro and her, the thing to take away from it is that Fox News, who I regard, and you can call me on my partisanship, of being essentially like a propaganda wing of the White House and this administration, regarded her commentary to be so off base and abhorrent, essentially, that they decided to kick her off the air. And it's not because out of like some kind of moral duty, right? I mean, they're going to lose advertising, just like what's going on with Carlson. They decided she was so toxic to the continuation of the platform that they wanted to remove her. Like, it's that bad, and yet the president of the United States is sort of actively advocating for her restoration, because she says the shit that he wants his base to buy into, and I mean, we could argue that point maybe if you want, but I don't see the need to necessarily. That this is who she is and what she said, and even Fox News says she was so bad that she's got to go. Effectively, go ahead, Mike.
If you don't mind, I think this is. I mean, I know that this is a bit of a generalization, but I think this is just your typical sign that Trump is not a real Republican in the sense at all. I mean, he's barely a conservative if he is at all. But now his policy. I mean, a lot of his policies implemented because he's surrounded by conservatives have. But besides the point, yeah, this goes back to where, like, I mean, like Fox News, heard what Jeanine said. I thought it was garbage. I don't know if it was worth getting fired. I mean, maybe suspended and she apologized, whatever. But besides the point, she got suspended. I don't know when she's gonna come back. Other Republicans, like that we already talked about the whole Steve King fiasco, what he said about he doesn't understand why white supremacy and white nationalism isn't bad. That was absolutely garbage. He got kicked off of every committee and censored. While we talked about Ilhan Omar, who had, I mean, anti-Semitic tropes. I mean, they were anti-Semitic tropes. Whether she's an anti-Semite is arguable, but anti-Semitic tropes nonetheless. And not only was a resolution completely changed to take out just anti-Semitism and just include all sorts of random bigotry in there, but right after that happened, she and two other Democratic reps made a statement where in the third paragraph they mentioned anti-Semitism, and instead they focused on on Islamophobia. And she is still on all of her campaigns. She's not censored. It's really strange to see that.
Did just shoot up a mosque. So.
I mean that's
no.
And I don't want
to mosques.
No, this was before the New Zealand shooting.
Yeah,
this
exactly.
Was right after the resolution passed in the House for anti-bigotry. That was her response to that. I'm like, wait a minute. The whole resolution was supposed to be about
Islamophobia is a thing.
Oh no, I'm not saying that Islamophobia shouldn't be condemned. It should be, but the fact that she made those statements, it was bipartisanly believed to be at least anti-Semitic tropes and also bipartisanly anti-Semitic period, and they completely changed it. And her statement after the resolution passed, and again, this is before the New Zealand shooting, was 2 paragraphs of how Islamophobia is bad and blah blah blah, and then in the third paragraph they wrote about we're having a conversation about anti-Semitism, and she's still on all of her committees. She's not censored. This is not the first time or even second time she's made statements like this. It's just really strange to see.
It's the difference between making tone deaf, and I don't want to necessarily defend her as saying, oh, I know her heart and I know she wasn't being anti-Semitic. It does not appear that it was engendered anti-Semitism that motivated her remarks, rather than a cynicism towards
his tone deaf tweets.
Yeah, it was essentially tone deaf, for which she apologized for, and she's gone through some retraining and And whether or not we can take that sincerely, I think will be borne out by evidence of her words and actions in the future. I get the idea that like a lot of people will look at like, oh, that's just the left giving her a pass. I understand that. I don't want to just give her a pass. I don't want to assume worse than what evidence has presented to me either. And that's why that's my take on Omar.
So my take
Final
is
thoughts, guys. Final thoughts.
I'm totally willing to accept, someone who is a Democrat, who everyone assumes, is totally my party and stuff. Yeah, she probably needs to do some self reflection, and it was like she needs to work on some stuff and everything. She's a freshman congressman. At that same time, that is the table that I'm sitting at, and I'm waiting. I'm just waiting for more people to join that table with me, because so long as you keep saying stuff like he called Islam animals 10 years ago, or other things that's the immediate gut reaction. There is dangerous hate being spread in the world right now, and people are organizing mass murder with the purpose of mobilizing and spreading their hate-filled message that other people should not be tolerated in their communities. So I just, totally willing to talk about the tone-deaf tweets by Omar, but, I'm waiting for other people to join the table and start talking about people just calling other people animals and whatnot. That's my take.
Okay, Haley. Final thoughts. Brandon, do you have anything else to say? I don't know if you're still with us.
Sure.
Brandon,
so generally, I would say that, regarding her tone-deaf comments, if she does it again, yeah, you probably could consider a more Steve King kind of reaction. But as far as getting rid of the quote unquote, well, it's not quote unquote. Well, getting rid of the issues in the world regarding both the speech and actions that involve the hatred that we see. I think it's extremely difficult to do that. We've never been historically successful at doing it, but there are ways that we can reduce it, and that would be like tax incentives for the tech companies. Tax incentives for the tech companies. Sorry.
Yeah.
Kind of a little bit of stumbling on my words.
No, that's a good idea.
And then things like sensible regulation. What can we get done regulation wise that's both reasonable and acceptable to both sides? Good luck with that one. That's a slippery slope, and have
fun.
Man,
at first I thought you were ready to sit at the table, and then you're like,
"No, I'm just being honest.
We're offering final thoughts here, guys, and we're gonna move on.
Final thoughts.
But in closing, these are all slippery slopes and require a deep understanding of nuance and general fermentation in order to parse.
Okay, Mike, final thoughts.
I mean, I think this just, I mean, when it comes to everything we've discussed, it comes down to a saying I heard a while ago. I can't remember from where, which is, we know when the far right goes too far. I'm sorry, this was actually Jordan Peterson. We know when the far right goes too far. We don't know when the left goes too far. And this is just where I think it should be universal, where, I mean, any type of radicalization that surrounds group identity, race, gender, religion, whether it's Islamophobia or radical Islamists or anti-Semitism, or white supremacy, any of those combinations, they're a garbage ideology that defy logic, reason, and humanity, really. And I think everybody should be united in completely condemning people who spout that type of rhetoric and those types of beliefs, because they really have no place in our society. We're way past the 1860s. We're way past the idea that we're all defined only by our race or only by our gender. And I think anytime somebody tries to group us all together in such a dehumanizing way, it needs to be just universally condemned.
Absolutely. My final thought is, let's not ennoble terrorists. Let's not validate them. Let's not give them what they wanted. Let's not reward their behavior. Don't read their manifestos. Don't read their blogs. Don't watch their videos. May they die in obscurity. May their knives chip and shatter. And that is my take on it. James, you got any final thought there?
I appreciate your position. Yeah. And Lord knows I had something to say a lot longer ago, but then I listened to everyone else's, and that's really convoluted.
Don't spread hate. Don't spread hate.
Don't spread hate.
No, Haley, normally I'd be really mad at you for interrupting me, but I think that you actually you hit the nail on the head. Don't spread hate. Honestly, I see no harm in seeking out what this killer did. If you want to read his manifesto, if you want to see his videos, I'll tell you right now, the manifesto is something worth reading. I think it's
final thoughts.
I think it's something worth reading. The video, I regret ever being involved in that, and I don't think you should. That's disgusting. It's really disgusting. Across the board, though, honestly, I think everyone covered what we need to talk about, and I'll let your opinions ferment from there. I really don't have a lot to add.
Okay. Let us ferment together and not form it together. because I think that's the way forward. I think that's the whole purpose of this thing, is just try to get around and past the divisions that this individual was trying to engender in us. Because fuck him. I hope he dies in obscurity.
I'd like to join you on that.
Yeah.
I would say fuck him.
I hope he dies in obscurity.
Mr. Anonymous.
Mr. Anonymous. Anyone else want to give this man a fuck you?
I already did.
Haley?
I hope
Sure.
you guys have gonorrhea. And
Anybody else? Hang on, wait. I would love to give you your opportunity. Brandon.
Sure, yeah. Screw him. That's just how it is. He's a piece of garbage, and it's what he's done is deeply.
You have a personal message for him?
Yeah, the message being death penalty. There you go.
There you go. Okay.
I hope he dies. I hope he dies of gonorrhea after getting gang raped in the jail in Rotterdam.
All right, fair.
Thank you.
All right, fair.
And on that fine note, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give a shout out to Ross James, JamesMedia.com, for
those two
being
those
probably
two thoughts
embarrassed
not
at this
related.
whole thing. Yeah,
not related
thoughts, but thank you for helping us get out here so we can send the message to this guy to go fuck himself and die in obscurity.
Please subscribe. Please subscribe to our channel.
Yes.
Thank you, Haley.
Yes.
Please subscribe to our channel, Fermenting Opinions. We're on the web, fermentingopinions.com. That's right. Also on Facebook, public
YouTube.
page, currently being trolled by some kind of Russian troll farm. And then also we have a private group, which they're not allowed. And we can ferment together there, Fermenting Opinions. Myself, I am David Pyden.
I am James McVeigh.
And thank you all for joining us, Brandon, Haley, and Mike. And we will see you next time. And we're out.